Okay.
So, with that being said, one of the biggest pros and cons right now is the protests. Are the protests helping or hurting the movement?
In my opinion, they are helping.
Okay.
The protests are helping because whether it's negative or quote unquote positive, it's bringing light to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Again, I hate to see looting and rioting. I do
Right.
hate to see it. I do hate to see it. I don't condone it, like I've said before, but I understand. Yet and still, hey, it brings attention. It brings the media to the issue. Okay, and so although I don't condone it, please, hey, however you decide to protest, that's how you decide to protest. Be safe with it. So is it helping? Yes, it's helping. It's not hurting. It's not hurting anyone except that person, in which I hope it tends to hurt the one who tries to not pay attention to it at all.
I agree with you to the aspect of in a situation where lives are being taken, there is no bad publicity when we're talking about bringing the topic up and having to discuss it. As far as is it helping or hurting, it depends on which media network you're talking to.
Ooh.
Because, a lot of the media have kind of portrayed the whole protesting portion of the movement as the looting and rioting. Anyone who supports it is supporting the looters and rioters, which is that that's not what they're supporting. There were days and days and days of peaceful protest before that one incident happened when the grand jury verdict was released, which was released at night, which it shouldn't have been, which made it more difficult for law enforcement to do its job. Do I think they wanted a catastrophe? Absolutely. Did they get one? Absolutely. Did it turn out exactly like they expected? No, it didn't, because those same people that were protesting peacefully were there again the next day. They expected this to become something that they could intimidate them once again to not be involved. Um, is it helping? I think it's helping because whenever you have something that spreads like a virus, and it is going to force change. If I'm the type of person that doesn't go to the doctor and I'm feeling sick in my hands, and now I'm feeling sick in my hands and shoulders, and now hands, shoulders, and chest, I'm going to go to the doctor whether I want to or not. This is forcing change because it is forcing people to pay attention. It is forcing people to step up. We are not only seeing African Americans protest, we're not only seeing people in Ferguson protest. They're protesting all over the country. We're seeing people of all races saying, hey, you know what? I may not be black, but that ain't right, because they realize if they can do that to them, they can for sure do it to me. So I look at it, it is helping, and the most recent where these guys caught hell for doing this, but the St. Louis Rams. Their pregame protest where they walked out with their hands up, and I saw all kind of horrible criticism of these guys. But it is good to see people who have been placed in a category to where they can mentally separate themselves from the rest of their community, decide not to, and to support the movement. Just like the Miami Heat, when they filmed their picture and posted it on the internet with all of them wearing hoodies after Trayvon Martin. I love to see it. I want to see more. I challenge more NFL players to support this movement, because this is not about how much money you make. Okay, this is built on the bricks that built this country, and this bricks was built on the disparity between individuals. And for the most part, those individuals had different color tones. And let's just be real on what it is. And so I think that as long as the protests continue and they stay consistent, then America has to listen.
That's right.
And the consistency also combats the media, because if you have one day of looting and 160 days of peaceful protest, they can try to spin that video as often as they want, but people will eventually see, well, they've been peaceful for 100 and something days. I don't know how many, but it's been way more than rioting, so I'm going to err on the side of caution. So I think it's helping. Now, we've talked about, some stuff, and one of the main things is the critics. There are critics, of this movement. Tell me your number one critique, and tell me how you feel about it and how you would respond to it.
Wow. I have none. And I gotta be honest with you. I don't have a critique. You know why? Because we will figure it out. We will figure it out. Just like us doing this, the Book of G.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, we're not coming to you in no big studio. We're not coming to you with the greatest sound, and the greatest technological event of, we thank you for your time for watching what we do and how we do it. But we just decided to do something.
Right.
And we'll get it right along the way. So I cannot critique this movement and what's going on now because they're doing something.
Well, no, not critique the movement in itself, but critiques of the movement.
Okay. Well, let me just point right into the camera. Bill O'Reilly, Hannity, and one very surprising one, Dr. Ben Carson. Shame on you.
And be specific.
Shame on
Tell
you.
the people, be specific with the critique. What was the critique about, and how do you feel about the critique? Be specific.
Bill O'Reilly, you, in your one moment of humanity, felt some compassion for Eric Garner and him and his passing. But in the very next breath, you stood on your soapbox again to say that there is not an epidemic of police brutality against Black America in this country. You used a shallow statistic about the amount of murders committed by police against African Americans. And you chose to use that minuscule number, which you said was, if there's 43 million blacks in this country and there were only 125 murders committed by law enforcement of that, then that doesn't justify an epidemic. Sir, I tell you, if one person dies because of injustice that law enforcement perpetrates on a victim, then we have an epidemic. Period. Dr. Ben Carson, you are from the poorest side of Baltimore. You have achieved heights that have put you in record books and made you celebrated among your people. But for you to take a national stage and to say that it's a single mother's problem, to say that, basically the old argument of, I did it, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, so how come you can't? Shame on you, sir.
Okay.
That's it.
I think my biggest critique, the one that kind of bothered me the most, is after the rioting. There were a lot of news stations that spoke of the rioters, and they, these are just people that are vandalizing. These are just criminals. These are thugs. These are people that are they were waiting for an opportunity to do this. Right. And here's what I say to this. It's amazing how we can use one story for one group of people and use a different story for another group of people. And no, I'm not going to go to the, college, or championship, or the San Francisco 49ers or San Francisco Giants, or even the pumpkin patch. I'm not even going to go there. The fact that news networks could not report how frustrated and how, African Americans were, and how this has been built up for so long to the point to where they exploded and finally did something. Here's what I find comedic about that situation. Americans at one point got extremely fed up, and they went and they dumped some tea in the water. Now, to a lot of people, I'm sure at that time, that looked very thuggish. It looked like they looked like troublemakers. They looked like they were creating problems. As a matter of fact, George Washington said, "You know what? We're not going to take this anymore. We're going to take up arms and we're going to free ourselves because we are being unfairly taxed and we are not being represented." This is the premise in which America, the concept was even born on, and they fought for that. They went to war with the people who were in charge, with the people who wrote the laws, with the people who laid the foundation for this country to even be built. And they, to this day, are heroes. They're the founding fathers. But when African Americans get tired, when they get fed up, and when they get tired of trying to do things the way you tell them is the right way to do it, and they act out of their own emotions, the lack of empathy and understanding that comes from you, when at the same time you're teaching them as they grow up in school that this is what a hero looks like, shame on you.